I sold this picture for $900 USD to a magazine. Actually, I sold various images to different magazines, and the thing that they all had in common was that for me, they were not the greatest images. They were like just images I cast aside. They were images I was going to upload to Unsplash when it first came out, because my friend Steve and another friend Alex actually upload their images to Unsplash. And I see their work all over the internet. I see it in YouTube tutorials, I see it in websites, all kind of web editing, because they take the same images that I do. However, if I had loaded my images, which I consider my B images, like the images that I cast away, then I would not have made any money. Now, I know it's not just about money, but please hear me out on this one. As photographers, there's images that we grow close to. Like, these are images that we love the most. Like, these are my favorite images. These are the images I work the hardest for. And they're the images that we want people to like and we want people to buy. But it's strange because what people want, what companies want, and what people ask you for usually are not the images that you want them to ask you for. Like, for me, I have what I consider my best images, and they're like the ones I'm most proud of. And then I have the images that I think are basically trash. Like, they're not good enough to meet my standards. But it just so happens that whenever like TV stations or companies or whatever it may be contact me, they always ask for these B images, or like the images that I just would have cast aside and I would have loaded to Unsplash otherwise. So financially, it would have been a huge mistake. I would have been at least $1,000 poorer if I had loaded these images on Splash, because they would have just found them online and used them. Now, I must admit, I did get a little bit of kind of envy when I see my friends like, wow, they've had their pictures seen on Unsplash more than 1,000,000 times, and like I see them all over YouTube, and yeah, they get credit. They don't get any money though. But the thing is, when your pictures get viewed, they aren't views like Instagram likes or like YouTube views, because basically people are just kind of scrolling past the image when they see your picture on Unsplash, like you're just kind of scrolling through, and that counts as a view. So when you get this message that your picture's been viewed more than 1,000,000 times or 2,000,000 times, it's actually not true. Like you're actually they're kind of not gonna say inflating the views. You're not getting as much exposure as you think. All right, it's just like they kind of just swipe past your image and that counts as a view. So you think you're getting exposure, you really aren't. Now, there are some exceptions. Some people will get it made. And I know as a beginner photographer, you're really anxious to get your work out there. But I don't think Unsplash gives you that kind of control. Like, yeah, sometimes you do have to work for free, not gonna lie. Sometimes you do put your images out there, but it's because you said so. Like, I'm not just gonna put my images on some server and then willy-dilly everyone can use them for free without even contacting me. They can go out there and claim they're your images too. Like, I've heard stories of like people coming across their images that they loaded on Unsplash, and some pseudo fake photographer took those images and built a portfolio and put them in there. And that's part of the agreement. Like, they can do that. So there's that. Like, the financially, I wouldn't do it. The exposure, like, you can't pay your rent in exposure. I'm sorry. Like, yeah, it's gonna help some people, but it's not gonna help that many people. It's like, if you think you're gonna get seen on Unsplash, it's quite a long shot. I'm trying to say. And you gotta remember, these companies that use these images, because I think even companies like Apple, even F-stoppers, I know they made a video for sure where they use their images. Like, these companies have a lot of money. They should be paying photographers for the money, but instead they're just kind of screwing photographers over by going to Unsplash and just taking the images for free. And you know what? It's like it's Apple. You know, they make billions. Like, what's it gonna cost them to pay a photographer to use their images? Or yeah, even if stoppers. Like, I know they said they're going to stop using Unsplash images, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of a hypocrite. I've used Unsplash like 2 or 3 times because I got really lazy with a thumbnail, and I feel really bad about it because actually I don't feel bad about it because capitalism. But I'm not gonna do it again because actually I really don't support Unsplash. And you know, this whole narrative they're like feeding people like, oh, you're just sharing with the community and you're sharing because you're creative, blah blah blah, and people suck this stuff up, you know, because you know who is getting rich from this stuff is Unsplash. Like, Unsplash is the one getting all the money out of this, and you're as a photographer really not getting anything in return. And all of these companies, multi-million-dollar companies and magazines that do have money to pay photographers, they don't have to pay anything to anyone. So like all these poor photographers are just getting duped basically with the exposure books. And I know for sure, like I've seen some of the images that my friend Steve loaded, which I think are like amazing images because he also takes pictures in my style. But I think I think he messed up, you know, like, because those images are really good. He could have sold them really well to a magazine, or now someone can just get those images and make shirts out of them, or cell phone cases, or just pass them off as their own, because of Unsplash, you know. So it's another reason you really shouldn't be using it. And I just think it kind of also devalues photography, because you know, everyone says that everyone these days is a photographer, which we all know is not really true, just people with cell phones. But now you have photographers that are losing their jobs and they're competing with people with cell phones. And on top of that, now you have would-be photographers, or maybe you are a photographer loading on Unsplash, giving their work away for free for anyone to use it. So really now photographers not really that great of a job because people just go to places like Unsplash. Now it might sound like I'm whinging, and not really, because it doesn't really affect me that much because I don't upload to Unsplash and there aren't many people going around taking the same kinds of photos that I do. And even if they do, like I have my brand, so people will come to me. But for the rest of you out there who are thinking, yeah, I'm just gonna load some images on Splash, probably not the best idea. You never know when someone's gonna want those images, like actually want to pay you for them. And hey, there's someone on Splash, I don't have to pay you anything. And like I said, many companies have money, they should be paying photographers, even if it's something like Getty or something. You're only getting cents for your image, but it's something, you know, better than exposure bucks. And lastly, I think this is something not many people are aware of, but there is such a thing as a model release. And you know, it differs from different countries. I think model releases are something that you gotta check your local laws with. But like, say for example, you take a picture of somebody and they don't want to be photographed, right? But you have that picture, you load it on Unsplash. If some big company decides to use this image, like I'm gonna use Apple again, just because that's the only company I can think of, and that person doesn't like that, I'm pretty sure you're the one who can get sued because you're the one who loaded it on Splash. Like, I don't think Unsplash protects you from any of that stuff. So you really gotta be careful with that. Like, it's something us street photographers really gotta be weird about. Even me, like, I do a lot of street photography, but when I take pictures of people, usually the only thing you see is like the silhouettes. Like, that's part of the reason why my photos are mostly silhouettes, you know, because I don't want people to see their face. I don't want to get any kind of legal troubles, especially with the pictures I load online. But South Korea has its own different laws. I don't really have to go into them because I'm sure you guys don't care, but there is always the legal issues of Unsplash, like you getting potentially sued for loading someone's image that they don't want being uploaded online. And yeah, for the most part, that's really my reasons why you should not be using Unsplash. I hope this came for some help for some of you, for anyone out there who's interested in using Unsplash. I really recommend you don't do it. I know it seems very tempting, especially when you're just beginning, that you want to get your work out there, but you're just getting likes or exposure or views. You're not really getting anything out of it. And if you do, it's kind of like hitting the jackpot. Like, uh, anyways, I'm not really good at goodbye, so I'll see you guys around, and hopefully you found this useful.